approached my sisters, I actually have a nice, thorough, prepared speech for you. I was given a specific brief, and this was regarding the challenges of Muslim women who want to participate in public life but are often feeling that they have to choose between their faith and their clothing. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is how I believe that that is, number one, quite colonial in its origin, but also that we need to move our discussion away from clothing to our identity as Muslim women. It's our principles that are being redefined, not how we wear our hijab. That's old school. The current battle is about our principles. So if you'll indulge me while I read off my screen, inshallah you'll find what I have to say quite concise. I have a habit of just rambling, which is why I need to have this written down. So Bismillah, in the name of the Most High, the Protector, the Wise and Loving. And what an act of love this conference is. My sincere thanks to Muslim Council of Britain for giving these incredible women a platform to truly share their struggles and joys of walking on this path of activism. Now, as an extrovert, I actually tend to feel quite alone, and that's because I feel like I'm missing my family, my true spirit family, my tribe, the people who are on the same mission as me. And what I found this morning and throughout the day is actually I feel at home. I feel amongst the women who want to make a change, who are going out of their way to do so, and it's really made me feel uplifted. Now, inshallah, we can continue to empower each other in seeking proximity towards Allah. And this is the bigger picture. This is what we need to remind ourselves on, that we're here to seek proximity towards Allah. He says in his holy book, وَمَا خَلَقْتَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have created jinn and mankind for naught except that they worship me. Let our activism be the catapult that takes us closer to Allah. Now, it's a pleasure to be able to say Assalamu alaikum and to and not be mistaken for something else. You know, not to have to justify or explain myself, not to have my identity be assumed to be political or anti-establishment. And that's because I'm amongst women who identify with me. But unfortunately, most of us do feel that in our public spaces. There is a sister, I was supposed to have a picture up of her. Her name is Maryam Bartour, the elected president of the Sorbonne branch of the National Student Union. She was interviewed on TV about student protests against the government reforms in France. The attention given to her was not regarding her comments, but the hijab that surrounded her face. This young person who was exercising her right to freedom of speech, that is so cherished by Western democracy. And again, I must stress, nothing she said was considered wrong or inflammatory or aggressive. It was her attire which was considered a political statement. Now, how can one interpret the meaning of a garment without asking the opinion of the woman who wears it? And make no mistake, this was not a naive move. The people who commented on her called her shocking and labeled her as someone who may follow Daesh or maybe want to fall for Daesh's theses. What was truly shocking is that the person who made these comments was the French Interior Minister, a senior politician. And make no mistake, this is not a naive move on his part. This is someone in power whose words have repercussions. Visibly, Muslim women have again and again been singled out for criticism. I'm sure, Zahra, that's what I want you to talk about, if it's okay later on. Have been singled out for criticism, denied their own agency or intellect, and prevented from engaging in public life. And this is not a new phenomenon. It's even within our own communities. And what we need to do is we need to look at how we can practice while maintaining our principles. Now, the image of Maryam that was posted on Charlie Hebdo, just by a show of hands, who knows what Charlie Hebdo is? Has anyone seen the picture I'm referring to? Yeah. Yeah? So can someone describe what you saw? What was the image published of her on Charlie Hebdo, the magazine? So she's a woman of, yes, brother?
No, I'm just...
Oh, okay. I was so eager for some participation. So this is a lady who comes from African heritage, and she was depicted on the Charlie Hebdo magazine cover as a monkey in hijab. So as I was trying to say, I was asked here to come and speak about Muslim women who should be free to choose, shouldn't have to choose between their clothing and But this thinking is colonial. Our clothing is not our issue to justify, defend, or react to in any way. It's their issue. By acknowledging this rhetoric and engaging in this dialogue, we're giving it credibility. We're saying, it's okay for you to see my clothing as a barrier. Let me prove to you how it's not. The image of Maryam, who was published as a monkey, was published on the magazine Charlie Hebdo, which was made globally famous for the terrorist actions of offended extremists who saw images published in an earlier edition of the Prophet having a bomb in his turban and saying something along the lines of, "Oh, I can't wait to get my 72 virgins in heaven." And it was defended globally for its right to freedom of speech. The phrase "Jesus Charlie," meaning we are all Charlie, was trending, while leaders gathered to commemorate the death and stand with the right to freedom of speech. Now, sadly, this right is not extended to us as Muslims. We are a racialized subject. An example, a case study within London. A campaigner by the name of Nazim Ali, in a pro-Palestine protest in 2017, made comments against Zionists, a political ideology. He was taken to court for charges of anti-Semitism, which is a hate crime. It was claimed that Mr. Ali had insulted Zionists, Zionist rabbis, and all those associated with the Jewish faith, as well as Israel, and has made them feel vulnerable, that they felt more at risk of being set upon or shunned in society, at work or elsewhere, because of the complainant's Jewish heritage. Where was the outrage for Maryam? Where was the outrage for Muslim women who were likened to letterboxes and robbers and ninjas? Why is Boris Johnson not being trialled for Islamophobia? My message to you is that we must understand the political environment of fear that is being socially engineered from the top down. I believe it comes from the government, not from the far right. On the contrary, the far right are also victims of Islamophobia themselves. They have been radicalized to believe that Islam is a violent faith that calls for the murder of innocents and the oppression of women. If you're struggling to grasp this concept, the simple fact that the government has made it obligatory on you as public servants in 2015 to monitor the public for signs of radicalization through prevent policy should be enough. It is mandatory to treat Muslims with suspicion. It is against the law not to. Now, I'm a teacher by trade, and as a teacher, I must assess the learning, facilitate activities of students, employ behavior management techniques with teenagers, as well as now assess whether these kids have been radicalized at home, as if I don't have enough to do. And a GP friend of mine mentioned the same thing. Within the 10-minute window slot that they have to assess whether, so they have to get the patient in and out, and they have to assess the ailment, they have to diagnose the patient. But jokingly, he said, the ailment now that I am looking for is radicalization. That's what I'm treating, nothing else. What is happening now is social engineering. We are given the parameters in which we can engage with in our society. This is not just our clothing, it's actually with our belief system. During Tony Blair's premiership in 1997 to 2007, a narrative was pushed that if a Muslim organization refused to attend Holocaust memorial services, that they were, by default, Holocaust deniers. Let that sink in. If they did not attend Holocaust memorial events, they were considered to be Holocaust deniers, and they had to prove that they were not Holocaust deniers. Now, some Muslims had given in to this Holocaust denier narrative, and rather than resisting and refusing to attend, they felt that they needed to. In this current age, that example is Israel. If you criticize the apartheid Zionist state of Israel, something openly condemned by the UN through investigations of its many human rights abuses, namely the expansion of illegal settlements, the killing of innocent people, and breaching the Geneva Convention of attacking medics and journalists, you are anti-Semitic. The trap many Muslims, both men and women, fall into is the compromise of principles and beliefs. To gain a seat at the table, Muslims become house Muslims. At first, we stay quiet on issues to prove that we are not radical. These issues are made sensitive through the Islamophobic propaganda that I've spoken about earlier. The most relevant example of this, unfortunately, is Baroness Warsi. The former Conservative Party chair has only in 2018 publicly called on the Conservative Party to launch a full independent inquiry into Islamophobia within the party, which she has made clear recently has always existed within the party. My question to her is why now? During the peak of her career as the party chair, was there no opportunity for her to whistleblow this? Did she not think the comments made by her colleagues were Islamophobic then? Why did she stay silent when she knew firsthand that the governing political party, those making decisions that affected 5% of the Muslim population, of the British population, which were Muslim, were insufficiently Islamophobic? And the reason is because she wanted to remain in power. She wanted a seat at the table, and in order to keep it, she had to stay silent. No doubt she was elected by those who identified with her as female and Muslim, and no doubt her intentions in entering politics was in part to represent her people, which is noble. But as she rose through the ranks, her parameters were slowly redefined. And that is the trap we can all fall into. We have examples of people who do not compromise on their principles, objectives of raising awareness during the aggressive policies that are endorsed by the government, such as fighting for the liberation of Palestine. And as a result, they were demonized, had their positions revoked and falsely colored with the brush of anti-Semitism. We have an amazing example in this very room. We have Lauren Boo, who is no longer given a platform for her journalism. I had to do that to you. Who is no longer given a platform for her journalism because she refuses to allow the government or the system to dictate how she spoke, when she spoke. We also have examples like Tony Benn, George Galloway, and most recently Chris Williamson. They even tried to take out Corbyn, and I imagine that this hasn't ended. The difference between them and Baroness Varsi is that they did not compromise on objective principles, which they could have easily justified and turned a blind eye to, in order to justify all the good that they could have done with the power that they had. Our desire to serve as elected officials in politics or through public service must not result in the compromising of our identity. We have laws that protect us if we're discriminated by our visible practice of our faith. It's not the physical identity that I am referring to. What we must be wary of is allowing the hidden curriculum, the social engineering of the government and the media to result in compromising our most fundamental principles, encouraging the good and forbidding the evil, or discouraging wrong. How can the good be defined? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who defines this. The path we adopt is one defined by true Muhammadi Islam, not Western Islam, not American Islam, not feminist Islam. Submission towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means following His commands. This must start with our personal lives, our salah, our hijab, our akhlaq. These strengthen our activism. Islam cannot be decoupled from activism. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We have not created jinn or mankind for anything except worship. Worship comes through obedience. How? In the first panel, when Yasmin spoke about her journey, she mentioned her detachment from the people's pleasure and good opinion, and that allowed her to get closeness towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we connect ourselves to the ultimate, the infinite, the divine, that is when we are able to face every calamity. And the hardest calamity ceases to be so, because you are fulfilling your objective, which is service to Allah. The more we strengthen our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, results in His service. It results in Him allowing us to be used as a tool for His cause, for the good in the world. I will be done in a minute, I promise. He has embedded within us people who are obedient towards Him, or at least try to do so, this sakina, this tranquility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at the end of Surah Al-Fajr, يَا آيَتِهَا النَّفْسِ الْمُطْمَئِنَّةِ ارْجَعِي إِلَىٰ رَبِّكِ رَاضِيَةً مَرْضِيَّةً ادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. O tranquil soul, return to your Lord, pleased with Him, and likewise He is pleased with you, and enter my select circle of servants and enter my paradise. The consequence of the ties made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which comes through obedience, servitude, is the courage and wisdom to endure and fight the obstacles, because you are in a constant state of tranquility. Islamophobia is targeted at Muslims, but we all suffer. Jo Cox, a white, middle-aged British woman, mother, daughter, who served her country as a member of parliament, was murdered. She was martyred by the far right for fighting against xenophobia that was promoted by the Brexit campaigners. And if someone like Jo can be targeted on British soil and killed in cold blood, no one is immune, and certainly not Muslim activists, Muslim female activists. We should seek power only to empower. We must keep our principles intact. Shaheed Malcolm X, something you may not know about him, when he first built his mosque or his center in America, he refused to register it as a charity because he would rather have paid taxes rather than let the establishment dictate how he ran his institution and what he could say and could not say there. We pray that we acquire the wisdom that we know how to channel our activism and gaining proximity towards Allah. Assalamu alaikum.